It was my first year of teaching, and this was supposed to be my greatest lesson of the school year. I had planned it for hours, revising every element until it looked flawless on paper. But suddenly, in third period, the reality sank in. My lesson sucked. Students weren't engaged. They didn't want to create Civil War newspapers. A few students looked engaged on the surface. They were listening, answering discussion questions, and participating. A few of them even got excited about drawing Civil War political cartoons. Still, I knew something was missing. My students didn't own the learning. At the time, I viewed teaching as a content delivery system. I worked tirelessly to create content that would be meaningful, fun, and challenging. When students seemed disinterested, I would try and dress it up with more humor or a pop culture twist. But it was always my content, and I was always the person delivering it. Don't get me wrong, students completed projects, but these were culminating projects at the end of a unit. To be honest, they weren't really projects, they were more like crafts. Our classroom projects looked nothing like the kinds of projects people do outside of school. I had strict rules on everything from formatting to strategies to pace to style. I handed students project papers that were essentially paint by numbers instructions. It never occurred to me that students could paint their own pictures. I had the best of intentions. I wanted students to know what they were supposed to do, so I provided clear instructions telling them what to do. But I left out a critical ingredient: choice. Looking back at it, I realized these projects had always been about me. Here's what I mean: I chose the resources, I chose the content, I asked the questions, I wrote the instructions, I managed the project progress, I chose the tasks, I wrote the objectives, I picked the standards, I decided on the format, I determined whether or not the work was very good. In other words, I chose everything ahead of time. I was afraid. Even though I wanted my students to have creative control, I was terrified. I knew I believed in student choice, but there were too many doubts floating around my head. Looking back at it, I see I was acting like a tour guide, leading my students through the content. Each lesson was a carefully packaged presentation where I would entertain my students and point out areas of interest. A few students might ask questions, and on a good day, we would have a discussion, but we never left the tour bus. We stuck tightly to the route spelled out by the curriculum map, stopping every few days to take on a new standard and tackle a new objective. When students were bored, I doubled down on the entertainment factor. When they were confused, I simplified my explanations. But we were all going in the same direction, at the same pace, in the same way. And I was the one driving the instruction bus.